to take you through now some NFL players who could be traded. Before we get started, a couple of quick notes before we get yelled at in the comments section and on YouTube and on Facebook and on Twitter and all that. Most of these players we know will not be traded. That's kind of the nature of the NFL. There aren't a ton of trades in that fashion. NFL trades are either few and far between or involve lesser-known players. So these are bigger names, but they probably aren't going to be traded. We know that. We're looking at guys that could be cut, guys that are actually on the trade block, guys that have been on the trade block, or players who haven't lived up to expectations on their first contract and could be dealt as well.
Yeah, I mean, some of these names, I mean, especially the quarterbacks, I think are the most interesting because, I mean, these are the bigger name players, but, man, it's just thinking about some of these guys in different uniforms could really, really change the way that our league looks.
Let's get into our top 25 players who could be traded this offseason. And the first player we start with, these aren't really ranked. They're just players in positional order. Quarterback Alex Smith, and this has kind of been a rumbling rumor the past couple of weeks ever since the Chiefs season ended. You know, they drafted Patrick Mahomes. Could Alex Smith be on his way out?
He really could be. I mean, they started Patrick Mahomes week 17. I thought he played pretty well, but I mean, since they drafted Mahomes in the first round of this past draft, the rumor has been he's not going to be the quarterback of the Chiefs anymore, but he had a career year, 26 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He really played, I thought, pretty well and carried this Chiefs team, but had a little bit of a rough stretch in the middle of the season. I don't know, Tom. It'll be definitely interesting to see.
So you see his stats on there, and you see the cap hit for the new team. So the way NFL contracts work if a trader is plated, the team that dealt him is no longer on the hook for any unplayed salaries or bonuses. But if they had a signing bonus or other bonuses along those lines, restructuring bonuses, whatever, that still counts. So in the end, it's kind of more along the lines of any roster or workout bonus, and the base salary now gets shifted to the new team. So there's still some big cap hits involved for these players, like Alex Smith, $17 million. But for quarterbacks, it's not that bad because you see quarterbacks be very highly paid, and if you have them for a year, that's really not that bad of a one-year salary for a QB who can start for you.
Especially if you think that you're a team who maybe has an incredible defense and you can get a game manager like Alex Smith. And, I mean, we just saw 2 years ago the Broncos win a Super Bowl with a game manager, Peyton Manning, because of an incredible defense. If a team thinks that they're that close, like the Broncos, hint, hint, maybe Alex Smith ends up there.
What would you ask for Alex Smith in a trade if you're the Chiefs? Like, what's your asking price?
I guess it ultimately depends. Like, if I know a team needs a quarterback, I'm going to ask pretty high. And I mean, with some of the quarterbacks that are coming out in the draft, I'm not crazy about them. I mean, maybe Mel Kiper is with Josh Allen going to the Browns #1, but like, I don't know. I would definitely ask. I think you could get a first-round pick for a guy like Alex Smith.
I would be surprised. I think a second-round pick might be what the Chiefs end up settling for if they do deal him. Let's get to another quarterback now. Nick Foles of the Philadelphia Eagles, of course. It looked great against the Vikings. Pretty darn impressive on that one there. And he's much cheaper. Only a $7 million cap hit. I would like to point this out, though. It is Nick Foles. Are we really fully trusting him in the end here?
I see what you did there, fully trusting him. But, I mean, this is the one thing I will say. I was a big doubter of Nick Foles, especially the way he ended the season. And it's kind of hard to argue that. But he's been exceptional, I thought, in the playoffs. Sure, his stats are heavily weighted with this last game against the Vikings, but he's not turning the ball over through the air, and I just think right now him being run pass, he's starting to get the chemistry back with the Eagles wide receivers, but I don't know if I would want Nick Foles. I mean, I don't know if I can trust him.
In the end, it depends on which Nick Foles are you getting. Are you getting playoff Eagles Nick Foles or Rams Nick Foles and Chiefs Nick Foles? Like how good is
27
touchdowns,
Nick Foles? 2 interceptions, Nick Foles, not too long ago. Like, let's
think
about that.
And then he quickly regressed back to earth. So it's going to be an interesting scenario here for the Eagles because you would assume Carson Wentz comes back healthy. The Eagles could also keep Nick Foles, and $7 million is a little pricey for a backup, but it's not that bad of a contract.
Especially when you see like how well he's played. And if they win the Super Bowl and Nick Foles wins the Super Bowl, wins 3 playoff games as being an underdog, you have to at least consider it. I mean, I think he would earn it.
All right, let's get to another NFC East quarterback here. How about Eli Manning? This one seems to have kind of calmed down on the trade front with Dave Gettleman reportedly saying that they want to keep Eli Manning for another year. He does have a $5 million roster bonus due on March 16th. So we will know pretty early whether or not the Giants are keeping Eli Manning or they're going to cut him or trade him because they're not going to, for the most part, you're not going to see a team eat that roster bonus and then trade him away.
Yeah, I would be pretty surprised if Eli Manning isn't calling hike for the New York Giants. I mean, we saw how angry this Giants fan base was when he was benched for, Geno Smith. Give me a break, Ben McAdoo. But, he is the face, I still believe, of this Giants team, of this Giants franchise. Super Bowl winning quarterback. I think he's here to stay, Tom.
And I agree, and I think you might see Eli Manning kind of take on that Kurt Warner role of being that one-year guy. He holds the fort down for one more year for Josh Rosen, a Sam Darnold, whoever, and then he rides off into the sunset.
That would be sweet. I would like that.
Yep. All right, 2 more quarterbacks here coming up. Let's get to kind of stay relatively in the same area. How about the Tyrod Taylor? And I think what you might see Tyrod Taylor end up being is a player you see get cut and not traded. $16 million cap hit, which includes that roster bonus due on 3/16.
Oh, wow. Okay. 3/16. Steve Austin, what's up there? Tyrod Taylor, though, here's a guy who I don't know why the Buffalo Bills dislike him as much as they do.
I don't know either.
I think he's a pretty good quarterback. 14 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, but he gives you the ability to run. And then with a guy like LaShawn McCoy, that's a pretty dynamic duo. But for some reason, this Buffalo Bills team has just proven year in and year out that they don't trust him. And then considering the wide receiver option that this guy had, I thought he did pretty well this year.
Yeah, and I think I am a big fan of Tyrod Taylor. Look, he's not going to be an Aaron Rodgers type guy. He's not going to be a Drew Brees. That's not who he is. But he's a good quarterback. Is he a top 10 quarterback? No, he's not. But is he a reliable starter for a league that needs reliable starters? Yeah, I think he is.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get to one more guy, and this is going to be interesting because we actually don't know what A.J. McCarron's contract situation currently is. As of right now, he's a restricted free agent, RFA. Okay. But he has an arbitration meeting in February to determine whether or not he's actually a free agent because there was some debate about whether or not his contract's total because of an injury. So we'll know in mid-February whether or not McCarron is an unrestricted free agent or a restricted free agent when he could be traded for maybe a second-round pick.
This seems like a very typical Bengals thing that's going on right now. But I think it's interesting because A.J. McCarron was almost a Cleveland Brown. And he was excited to be the new starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. That trade fell through. For me, though, A.J. McCarron, since he came out of Alabama, I thought he came out and he had, a lot more glow to him because him obviously being from, the Crimson Tide. But when I watch McCarron on the field, I'm not thoroughly impressed.
I don't think he's that good either. And frankly, I think the Browns got lucky that they didn't trade for him.
Yeah.
I think that worked out better for them in the end. All right, so those are your 5 quarterbacks. Let's get to then a reaction poll here. We're not going to include A.J. McCarron on this one because, well, we don't really know if he's a free agent or a restricted free agent. But which quarterback would you most want to trade for if they're all attainable, but you're factoring in what the price of the pick or whatever you're trading for is included?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm making it difficult on you, huh?
Yeah, see, you spun it on me a little bit. I think if I'm a team who has a defense who's already sold, and I believe that I'm just a quarterback away from being able to make a Super Bowl run, I think I'm going to take a guy like Alex Smith. He had a career year, 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 5 picks, but I am a guy who is guilty of saying I don't know if Alex Smith could ever win a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. But I think he's the guy.
You're going to vote Alex Smith?
I think he's the guy that I would pick out of those.
Give me Tyrod Taylor.
Okay.
And I also know that there's a good chance he gets cut and he ends up being much cheaper, but that's the route I would go.
Okay.
I will go Tyrod Taylor because I think if I get a coordinator who's willing to let him run the football, it'll do wonders for my team.
That's fair. I still think he can't be the focal point as much as Alex Smith can.
That's fair. Let's get then to a little recap here. These are the 5 players we've discussed so far. All of them quarterbacks. Alex Smith, Nick Foles, Eli Manning, Tyrod Taylor, and A.J. McCarron. So those were the quarterbacks to keep an eye on for in terms of trade talks. These are some other positions and players as well. How about a guy who got dealt this season? Adrian Peterson, the running back. Now, David Johnson's going to come back. Is Peterson going to want to sit as a backup, or he'll be like, hey, trade me again, or just cut me?
I think he's going to want to be traded again. We saw him with the Saints. He wasn't happy being a backup. He was yelling in Sean Payton's ear, hey, play me. And, well, I think we both know now that Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram are better options than Adrian Peterson. Mm-hmm. He just has, I think, too big of an ego, too much money there. And, yeah, David Johnson, he's going to be on the field all the time.
I think this is an example and one we're going to see for several players of, the team that has him might want to trade him, but who's actually going to trade for Adrian Peterson given the contract?
Very true.
I think this is an example you might just see end up getting cut.
Yeah, I think he's a good candidate to get cut as well. He's what now, 33 years old. He's a running back. A lot of wear on those tires. And, yeah, when you see that kind of money for a running back at his age, who, in my opinion, was not all that great this year. Yeah. Let's
get to another halfback here. And this one is me very much going rogue with my pure speculation. How about a guy like Amir Abdullah? And let me finish my thought before you make fun of me, Mitchell. What happens if the Lions draft Darius Geis in the first round? At that point, I think all of a sudden you've got Amir Abdullah very much on the draft day trade block. So this is not a pre-offseason trade or a free agency trade. This is a draft day trade to monitor.
Okay, I mean, this one kind of stings a little bit, and I'm gonna take my licks here, and I'm gonna say sorry for everybody who actually listens to me for fantasy football advice. I was all aboard the Amir Abdullah hype train for multiple years. I'm like, this guy's talented out of Nebraska. He's got a lot of skills. Heck, the Cardinals actually wanted Amir Abdullah over David Johnson. This is how highly touted. They were in love with Amir Abdullah. He averaged 3.3 yards per carry. He's just too small. He's getting banged up. Oh, Tom, I think I'm officially getting off the Abdullah hype train.
All right. Monitor him if the Lions spend an early pick on a running back. Keep an eye on Abdullah as a draft day trade. We see a couple of those each year. I think Abdullah could be one of those guys. Let's get now to receivers. There are quite a few of these on this list. How about Martavis Bryant? Now, he requested a trade during the season. Pittsburgh said no. Have they made amends enough to not revisit this in the offseason?
See, when you draft a guy, I think like Juju Smith-Schuster, who has shown, in my opinion, to have a better chemistry with Ben Roethlisberger, and it just has better, I guess, Juju with the team in general. But Bryant has has the off-field issues. He has the concerns there, and just even when he was on the field this year, Tom, he was not the explosive player that I was hoping. I mean, this guy was. I probably shouldn't use that word. He had very high ceiling. We'll go with that. And unfortunately,
double introductions are okay.
And it unfortunately just didn't come out into fruition.
All right, so Martavis Bryant. Let's get to some more receivers, and there are quite a few of them. And in the end, you might not see any get dealt because, as we mentioned, folks, most of these players will not be traded. But I think you might see some rumblings, some rumors, or even some trade talks that leak between teams. How about Allen Hurns? And this falls into the could-be cut category. Ergo, teams will try to trade him first.
Yeah, but there is no team in the NFL that is going to trade for Allen Hurns considering his contract. I mean, that's one that the Jaguars have been really, really regretting. I mean, ever since they signed him. And he's just right now, he's a big guy out of the slot. I mean, he had 1 year where he put up 8 touchdowns, just a flukish amount of touchdowns. And when Allen Robinson comes back next year, then the emergence of Keelan Cole, D.D. Westbrook, sorry, Hurns, you're probably gonna get cut.
Yeah, so again, you see that cap hit there, $7 million. Teams that make a trade don't have to pay, the previous guaranteed money or the roster bonuses or the signing bonuses that have already been paid. But any salary or roster bonuses or workout bonuses still have to be paid are included in that cap hit for the next team. So $7 million to whoever trades for Hurns, if anyone does. It kind of seems a cut. Plus, he's got the $4 million in salary guarantees coming up on 3/16. You could see him cut on or before that day.
No chance.
More receivers, this one a bigger name. We saw this mentioned in our free agency show here. Let's get to Josh Gordon then, because he is an exclusive rights free agent. Means that Browns say, hey, here's your contract, play for us or don't play at all. But they could try trading him later.
They could try trading him. He definitely has the appeal. I mean, he's really, really talented. I mean, he did not play football for multiple years and then just comes out first game and balls out.
Fine.
I mean, 18 catches, 335 yards. He did see 43 targets. I'm going to blame that more on the quarterback play for the Browns, but he has the physical size. He has the athleticism. He has what you want in a wide receiver, but I feel like he should stay in Cleveland. This is a young team who might have some solid wide receiver options. But, I mean, his risk is so high, Tom.
Remember, the Browns reportedly considered trading him before the deadline, but they had a very high asking price, and that asking price has probably only gone up since then because he looked pretty darn good despite inconsistent quarterback play, which is a nice way of saying it.
Yeah.
We can just call it bad.
Yeah, I think we can call it bad for sure.
All right, for those of you just joining us, here are the players we've discussed so far, our last 5 here. Adrian Peterson, Amir Abdullah, Martavis Bryant, Allen Hurns, and Josh Gordon was where we left off. Before that, we had the quarterbacks, Alex Smith, Nick Foles, Eli Manning, Tyrod Taylor, and A.J. McCarron, who may end up being an unrestricted free agent. We'll know more in mid-February. Back to some receivers here. How about Jordy Nelson also falls into the, hey, we might have to cut this guy. Same with Randall Cobb, who did not make this list, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Packers are going to have to look at between Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb, but for me, Jordy Nelson's going to be 33 years old at the start of the season. For a guy who, he had 6 touchdowns, but he definitely did not look as good as he did in past years. Yes, his chemistry with Aaron Rodgers is normally the reason why we've seen him be so great, but I just don't see the Packers paying a player who's going to be, I believe, the second highest paid player on their team at age 33. And Tom, I've been saying it for a while. Jordy's not the best receiver on the Green Bay Packers anymore.
Well, Devontae Adams sure got that big old contract there. And Nelson did not look the same when Aaron Rodgers got hurt and kind of regressed down the stretch. And with a $10 million cap hit, as good as Nelson has been, that's pretty expensive to pay for a receiver who may or may not be on the decline.
That's the thing. I think the only way he's a Green Bay Packers if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Green Bay Packers organization and says, hey, he's my guy. I want him. And if Rodgers doesn't do that, see you, Jordy.
All right, let's get into another receiver here. Michael Crabtree also could be cut. There was a report that the Raiders weren't going to bring him back. If he's traded, his new cap hit for the new team is just under $7.7 million. Compared to guys like Jordy Nelson and some others that we're going to discuss, that's really not that bad.
It's not that bad, but then when you look at his numbers, 58 catches, 618 yards, Tom, I mean.
A lot of drops.
Yeah, a lot of drops. He probably could have had 100 catches if he didn't drop the ball as many times as he did. But this Oakland team definitely struggled offensively, and I think you have to point to guys like Crabtree. And I mean, yeah, he had a little bit of a scuffle with Aqib Talib also this year. I mean, no, there's the graphic right there. But, I mean, I like Crabtree as a receiver. He is a possession receiver, but here's another guy. You're going to pay another guy over 30 years old at the wide receiver position that kind of money. I don't know if it's justifiable.
How about another guy that has an even bigger cap hit, Dez Bryant? Now, he has said he's not going to take a pay cut. I'm the host of the Cowboys Report on Chat Sports. A lot of Cowboys fans says, hey, let's just trade Dez Bryant. Here's the issue. His cap hit is $12.5 million. Yeah. That's a pretty significant cap hit for Dez Bryant for a receiver that wasn't all that great last year.
Yeah, I believe any team is going to throw up their X and say, sorry, Dez, you're not coming here, because there's no team that's going to pay. I feel like right now, again, another receiver who is definitely on the decline. I still think Dez Bryant is a top 20 wide receiver maybe in the NFL. He's still physical. There's at times he would show the burst, but I just don't think he has very good chemistry right now with that offense. But maybe getting Ezekiel Elliott back, taking some pressure off the passing game, maybe that opens up things for a guy like Dez. Maybe.
I think the question now around Dez Bryant in the beginning of the year was, is Dez Bryant still elite? Now the question here is, and we'll bring up a weigh-in here as well, is Dez Bryant washed up, Mitchell? Do you think that we've seen the best of Dez Bryant?
Have we seen the best of Dez Bryant? Yes.
Okay.
Is he washed up? I'm still going to say no. I don't think he's totally washed up. I mean, Dez Bryant is still, I would say, an average to an above average wide receiver. And to me, for an NFL player, that's not washed up.
Yeah, that's fair then. And I think with he's definitely not worth his contract.
Oh, 100%
and that's also
there.
why I think you won't see a Dez Bryant trade, because at $12.5 million for a cap hit for a new team, A, not many teams can take on that cap hit right now. B, who would actually want to? I mean, if you're Cleveland, you got money to burn, or the Niners have money to burn, why not? But I just don't think
it's justifiable. I don't age, and then you just see the year he had. I just don't. No way.
All right, one more receiver here that we will discuss as we just wrapped up our Dez Bryant talk. Let's get to one, Larry Fitzgerald. And again, how many times have you heard Larry Fitzgerald trade mentioned in the media or on blogs or whatever? Well, it's all the time.
Well, we thought he was going to the Patriots. There was like a picture of him in wasn't actually him.
That was fake news.
Yeah, it wasn't actually him in like a New England airport. I remember all my friends from Boston were freaking out. But I mean, Larry Fitzgerald, I feel like, is this guy who every single year I hear, I think he's going to be on the decline. He's going to be on the decline. 3 straight years, over 100 catches. Last year, he led the NFL in receptions, and then this season, 109 catches. Larry just keeps getting it done. And you want to talk about a guy who's been dealing with quarterback issues? Larry Fitzgerald, yet still gets it done.
And the cap hit at $12 million, not that bad for a guy like Fitz. But I think in the end with Fitzgerald, as great as it would be to see him get a Super Bowl, he's probably on the Cardinals till he retires. And I don't think they win the Super Bowl next year.
Yeah, unfortunately not.
Especially with a gigantic question mark at quarterback.
Yeah, that's an understatement. I mean, even though they will get David Johnson back, and they even have a new head coach, but yeah, sorry, no way.
Let's get to another offensive player here. How about Corty Glenn? Now, the Bills and Glenn had a couple different talks. The Bills had talks about trading an offensive lineman. Jordan Mills had emerging discussion. Corty Glenn could also be an option. He was hurt for much of this year, but he only played in 6 games because of injury. He has a pretty sizable cap hit plus a $2 million roster bonus that's due on 3/18.
Yeah, here's the issue though with Glenn. Mm-hmm. I'm just not really a believer in him right now, and I mean
because of the injuries.
100% because of the injuries, and I think he's a talented player, but when you just can't stay on the field,
it's fair.
I don't know, Tom. It just doesn't do it for me.
I think with Glenn, the chance to get a left tackle doesn't appear very often, as in my mind.
True. I mean, if
Dwayne Brown was one guy, but other than that, you don't see a lot of left tackle trades.
Well, again, if you can find a solid left tackle to protect your quarterback, that's worth the investment alone. You're going to pay these guys ridiculous amounts of money. You want them to be able to protect your quarterback. But again, Glenn has yet to show that he can stay healthy.
That's fair. All right, for those of you just joining us, here are the players we have discussed so far. Alex Smith, Nick Foles, Eli Manning, Tyrod Taylor, A.J. McCarron. Mitchell, give me one guy of those 5 there who is most likely to be dealt.
Which one?
Of the 5 guys up here, Smith, Foles, Manning, Taylor, and McCarron.
To be dealt, I'm going to say Alex Smith is on the way out.
All right, let's get to our next 5 here. Adrian Peterson, Amir Abdullah, Martavis Bryant, Alan Hurns, and Josh Gordon.
Ooh, boy, those are some interesting names there, Tom. I think the ones to get dealt there, I'm going to go Martavis Bryant.
Okay, and then our most recent 5, Jordy Nelson, Michael Crabtree, Dez Bryant, Fitzgerald, and Corty Glenn. Does anyone get dealt of that group there, Mitchell?
I don't know if anyone gets dealt due to the amount of money, but if I had to put money on a guy getting cut, call me crazy. I think it's Jordy Nelson.
All right. Today's show is brought to you by Mizzen and Main. If you are like us and you wear nice shirts at work, nice collared shirts, make yourself look presentable, and not the gym shirt you wore last night, you kind of get tired of it being all sticky and cottony, right? Not anymore. Mizzen and Main makes incredibly comfortable dress shirts made out of performance wear fabrics. Comfortable.af is the website because they are comfortable as F.
That's what I mean. I was at the gym yesterday, Tom, and there was this guy wearing jeans and just this really ridiculous shirt. But if you can literally wear a Mizzen and Main shirt to the gym, they stretch amazing. If you sweat like Cam Rogers, you're not even going to be able to tell because these shirts just soak it all up. Amazing shirts. You're going to be looking great. I promise. You're going to be looking
all right. Comfortable.af is the website, folks. Check it out for incredibly comfortable dress shirts. Let's get back to our top players who could be traded this offseason. We'll stay on the offensive line. Ereck Flowers was better this year, still not that good because he struggles in pass protection. And remember, this I think is maybe the best example we've had yet of a new regime taking over. The Giants and new GM Dave Gettleman and head coach Pat Shermer are no longer tied to previous draftings, and they don't have the same investment set in a guy like Ereck Flowers. We saw them cut Bobby Hart for some attitude issues at the end of the year. Ereck Flowers had those same one. Hart was cut because he had no trade value. Ereck Flowers has some value, even if it's only a Greg Robinson level 7th round pick.
For sure. And he might have the 54th best tackle grade, but this Giants offensive line in general was really bad, and I think Flowers had to pick up for it, unfortunately. But when I see grades like this for tackles in an offense like the Giants tried to get the ball out exceptionally quick, and they still struggled. So for me, that's a big red flag.
Ereck Flowers was better after week 1 when he got abused by DeMarcus Lawrence. Started a great year for Lawrence. So Flowers looked better. I think in the end he's more of a right tackle. I just don't think he has the speed to survive on the left side of the line.
That's fair.
You know who can still survive on the left side of the line, though? How about Joe Thomas? And I think this kind of falls in the Larry Fitzgerald category of, wouldn't it be great if he went to a winner?
Oh, it
would.
He
Joe,
might be my favorite player in the NFL.
He has died for the sins of Cleveland. I feel bad for Joe Thomas because he has consistently been one of, if not the best offensive lineman in all of the NFL. And he's got nothing to show for it.
Not only reliable. How many games did he play in a row before
the injury this year?
He's been incredible, and not only that. I don't know if you follow him on Twitter.
He's hilarious.
A hilarious dude. All around great guy. I root for a guy like Joe Thomas, but I would just love to see him go anywhere else besides the Browns.
Now he is weighing retirement. Now we'll see if that ends up happening. And I think Joe Thomas, and this has always kind of been Joe Thomas. Remember, there was a few years ago he almost got dealt to Denver. Denver didn't get that deal in before the deadline. It came up just short. Would have maybe changed Denver's outlook on the offensive line a little bit. With Joe Thomas, he strikes me as a guy that's never going to go and ask for a trade, but he'd be like, sure. As long as you send me to a winner. It's either Cleveland or send me to a really good team.
Well, I was just going to say, if you're looking for a winner, that literally was not the Cleveland Browns a single time this year. So I guess you can only go up from the Browns.
Yep. Let's get to some more players. So we'll go to the defensive side of the ball. Tamba Ali. Now, he did not have a good year this year. This was not the Ali of old that we've seen, and there was some weird preseason stuff where he kind of sort of demanded a trade and had a bit of a meltdown on Twitter and then was hurt and did nothing. D Ford took over. Strikes me more as a cap cut than a guy that will be traded, but the Chiefs will try to trade him because, as we mentioned, folks, all these guys that are going to get cut, teams will try to trade them first.
I mean, when you see 5 games, 1 tackle, but I mean, when you know like a guy like Hali, like he has been tremendous throughout his entire career, and he's a guy that people respect, people try to learn after. So I think if he could go to a team and maybe teach some younger players, like I remember at the end of the one Chiefs game, he was teaching Joey Bosa how to like get like they were just doing like this like awesome like drills together. Like that's kind of guy Tom Hali is out of Penn State. Great dude.
$1 million roster bonus due on March 1st. We'll have a good feeling then because I think if the Chiefs are going to cut him, they're going to do it by then because they don't want to deal with that. Here's a player that I think of the guys we discussed recently is actually pretty likely to be dealt. Hau'oli, Kikaha, the Saints edge rusher linebacker, is miscast now that they've moved to the 4-3 defense. He's kind of more of an edge rusher, but he's built not big enough to be a defensive end. He is miscast in a scheme that no longer fits him. Expect him to be dealt maybe during the draft in particular. There's going to be buzz around him in terms of NFL front offices. The Saints tried to deal him during the trade deadline period, couldn't make it happen.
All right, Tom, let me ask you this then. What team do you think could use a guy, could use his services?
You're looking for a 3-4 team, and I think the Patriots just need edge rushers in general, and they need more of those guys. The Colts are often looking at that position as well.
Colts need a lot.
So in the end, you are targeting guys or teams that need players who can fit in a 3-4 scheme. That's what Kikaha is best at. He is miscast in a 4-3. He's just not big enough to be that role. So I would think any team that runs a 3-4 that needs depth makes sense because you're going to find that he's not going to be all that expensive in the end. He's not going to be overly pricey because he's a former high-round pick that hasn't developed in the way that you would have liked him to do it. Okay. So those types of teams, the Texans, they need a third edge rusher. That could be a fit there. We mentioned the Colts, the Rams. The Rams need more guys to fit Wade Phillips' scheme. This is going to be a cheaper option.
Okay. What about like the Raiders? I know the Raiders really need linebacking help.
The Raiders could, and they do kind of run that 4-3, 3-4 hybrid defense, at least last year.
It might change now.
Yeah, they could use some more depth there, but I don't think that'd be an ideal fit. I think the Jets, because they lack 3-4 actual edge rushers, is a fit there. Maybe you could see the Raiders. I think the Steelers could be an option. They could use some more depth there. The Titans as well. I think you'll see him go to a team that liked him coming out and thinks that they can be a better option.
Cool.
All right, let's get to some more players here. How about a bigger name? Richard Sherman of the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks were very open about we shopped him, which you never see in the NFL, but it happens more than you think, by the way. That stuff normally doesn't get leaked, but Seattle's like, we listened to offers on him. Teams will always listen to offers, but they really go, let's see what else you can offer. They're kind of like, nah, we want a lot more. And the team's, okay, trade talk's over. But Sherman, now that he's coming off the injury, his value has dropped, and he carries that $11 million cap hit.
I was just going to say, the injury alone, I think, is really what's alarming there. I mean, here's another guy who's a little bit older. I believe he's almost 30 years old now, and then coming off an Achilles injury, Tom, I mean, that is a really, really rough injury, especially for a position like cornerback, especially for a physical cornerback like Richard Sherman. And then, carrying that $11 million, the Seahawks could use the extra cap space. So I think he's a likely cut, like a very likely cut.
I think a team maybe like the 49ers who have a lot of cap space available, and Sherman knows the scheme because it's the Seattle Seahawks style defense. They got the cap space. If they can get a late round pick or something, maybe that makes more sense for Seattle.
And he'd be a great fit in 49ers. They desperately need cornerbacks.
All right, so our question now, folks, is Richard Sherman still a number 1 cornerback knowing he's coming off that injury? You look very, very stressed with this question.
People can't see me, but that is a tough question. Like, there's a part of me that wants to say yes, because the length that Richard Sherman has and the physicality that he brings to a defense, I think it is more than just like on the field. He also brings leadership in the locker room. But is he still a number 1 cornerback after that kind of injury, Tom? I don't know, man. And I'm going to say no. I think we see a lot of times great defenses when you have one guy who can like lock up side of the field. I mean, we saw it with Darrelle Revis. Darrelle Revis was an amazing cornerback, suffered a bad injury, and then struggled. I don't know if he's a number 1 cornerback anymore.
All right, comment here coming in from Brandon says, Keenan Allen, will the Chargers trade him or cut him? No, they are not. And I responded to that in the comment section. They are not going to do anything but keep Keenan Allen unless the team comes through with like, hey, here's all of our picks.
Aaron Rodgers for Keenan Allen.
Right, Alan Thomas here says, does Sua Cravens have any trade after taking a year off? Yes, some. And Alan, hint, we'll get to that a little bit later on in the show for sure. Cravens did make this list. We'll talk about him in a little bit. Want to remind you that today's show, folks, is brought to you by Mizzen and Main. incredibly comfortable dress shirts made out of performance wear fabrics. You got to check them out at comfortable.af. Mitchell, I have been known after a late night at various establishments to fall asleep in them.
Really?
And I mean bars, by the way.
Yeah,
I realized that could have gone a lot dirtier, so bars.
No, they're amazing.
Bars.
It's funny, my buddy was watching the show the other day, Tom. I played college baseball with him. He's like, Mitch, you know I don't wear dress shirts. And I'm like, they're
comfortable.
But they have casual shirts as well, Tom. And I mean, it's probably why he struck out on the field and at the bar too. But like, guys, they have casual shirts. They have so many different kinds of shirts. They have sweaters like I'm wearing right now. Comfortable.af, Ms. and Main, you can't go wrong.
All right, for those of you just joining us, let's take you to the players that we have discussed so far among the players who could be traded this offseason. We got 5 quarterbacks to start. Alex Smith, Nick Foles, Eli Manning, Tyrod Taylor, A.J. McCarron, Mitchell. Foles could be traded yet again.
Yeah, yet again.
It's his destiny.
It's his destiny to never be able to be on a team. Imagine a quarterback who wins a Super Bowl and then just see ya.
All right, I'll get to some more players here. Adrian Peterson, Amir Abdullah, Martavis Bryant, Al Hurns, and Josh Gordon, who every other team wants to get.
Well, he's definitely got the size. I mean, sure, only 18 catches, but when you're dealing with the quarterback situations he had, his numbers were pretty good.
All right, some more players here. Jordy Nelson, Michael Crabtree, Dez Bryant, Larry Fitzgerald, and Corty Glenn.
Which one of these is not like the other? Larry Fitzgerald?
Ooh, the offensive lineman.
No, touche.
See?
You beat me there,
Gotcha.
man. But Larry Fitzgerald is by far the guy who's still on this list who I think is still playing at a very high level.
All right, next up here. Ereck Flowers, Joe Thomas, Tamba Ali, Hiloika Kikaha, I butchered that one a little bit there, sorry folks, and then Richard Sherman.
Yeah, I mean, I think for people who see like the name Richard Sherman, I know my dad was like, wow, Richard Sherman, you really think he's going to get cut? And I was like, Dad, I'm telling you, I wrote an article on it, chatsports.com, and I said there's no doubt, I shouldn't say no doubt, I'm I believe very highly that Richard Sherman will get cut, especially with the money and injury that he has going on right now.
All right, 5 more players left, folks. Then we're going to talk some NFL coaching hires. We'll rank those 6 to 1. Our next player is Eli Apple, and God, what a mess of a year. Like, I don't really know what else to describe Eli Apple, but just a mess.
He's a bad apple.
He was a clubhouse cancer this year. There's no other way to put it. He was a locker room cancer all year long, had issues with multiple players and teammates and staff and the coaching staff, and I would be stunned if Eli Apple is back with the Giants next year, which is crazy to think he was a top 10 pick 2 years ago. That's insane.
That's what I mean. I mean, Eli Apple, bad apple, and the big apple, see ya. Like, it's just not going to work out. I mean, this Giants team just 2 years ago was one of the top defenses, and he struggled. And then this year, he did play a little bit better from his rookie season, but considering the inside the locker room issues that this guy has had, he's not even close to being worth it.
It's very cheap if a team wants to say, you know what, we believe that Eli Apple can be better, but they also got to think, hey, we can just give him the minimum contract if we want. He and his mother seem to be the root of the issues for the Giants there, or at least part of the root and the big reason why they had some issues on defense. And the Giants' secondary and defense overall was a bit of a mess this year.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it stems down from coaching, inside the locker room. I mean, this Giants team has the talent. On paper, I thought they had one of the best defenses entering the year, but when you have these little hiccups and then guys don't play together as a cohesive unit, that's when you see happen. And Eli Apple's a big reason for that.
Same team, same position up next. How about Dominique Rogers Cromartie? Has a pretty significant cap hit. $6.5 million is a lot for a corner. And DRC wasn't always super happy this year with the Giants because they kept playing Eli Apple over him, and he's like, I'm clearly better. He's right.
Clearly better.
He also got suspended for a game.
Yeah, well, here's another guy who had some issues with the coaches and team, but I think when I watched Rogers Cromartie, I just think as he just brings that leadership, he brings a toughness, and he's a solid corner, like, still at this time in his career. So he did come over from the Cardinals, and I don't blame him for being frustrated with the team, especially when you clearly see he was much better than Eli Apple on end, off the field.
Let's get to some more corners here. We got 3 players left. How about Aqib Talib? $11 million. That's a lot for a corner in today's age. Especially one who kind of like he was on the decline last year, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, I think Charles Harris now is the best cornerback in Denver, but Aqib Talib is another guy who I think he can do it all. He can tackle, he can cover, and he's just super physical. He brings that toughness to that Denver Broncos team. I mean, he was a major reason why they were the no-fly zone in Denver, but again, in today's NFL, paying a guy $11 million, especially for a team who's going to need a quarterback. Like, they need a quarterback. I don't know if you can justify paying Aqib Talib $11 million.
If Denver wants to go get Kirk Cousins, you could see them cut Talib, free up that cap space, let Bradley Roby become the number 2 corner alongside Chris Harris Jr., and Denver, I think, would be okay. But keep
I like
an eye,
that.
just keep an eye on sleeve there.
I like that a
Just
lot,
an
Tom.
option. Another corner here. How about Orlando Scandrick? Now, he was nearly dealt to the Saints in exchange for Kenny Vaccaro during the NFL draft. And then this year kind of became, in the end, a progress inhibitor is the way I would describe it, because there's Jordan Lewis and Chidobe Awuzie. Those are your guys going forward at corner for the Cowboys, maybe another guy in there. They don't really need Scandrick. Now, the back injury is a concern. That's the number one issue in terms of his trade value. He had the back fracture this year, ended his season early, but only a $3 million cap hit for a guy that we've seen can be a slot or an outside cover corner.
Again, when you have the ability to play multiple positions, especially on defense, that you can hide coverages a little bit better, you can confuse quarterbacks a little bit better. But the Cowboys, I think, their corners are up and coming, who have a lot of talent. I think they have high ceiling, but when you have a veteran presence like Scandrick, I think it definitely helps. I think the Cowboys should keep him.
I would be stunned if Dallas kept Orlando Scandrick.
Okay.
And I think that there are a couple of different reasons there. One, you're going to have Awuzie and Jordan Lewis, and then maybe Anthony Brown as well if the Cowboys like him. You could see them add another young corner or move Byron Jones on the corner like they should do. But Scandrick, with the cap space that the Cowboys can free up, they don't need to pay their number 3 or number 4 corner that much money.
Okay.
But I think a team that could use a nickel guy, Scandrick makes a lot of sense.
Fair. I'll take your word for it on that, Tom.
All right, let's get then to our last player. We saw this in the comments section earlier. Sua Cravens, and just a weird one overall. Look, he didn't play this year, and there have been some conflicting reports / reasons / speculation why. Some had said there was some personal stuff, there was some family stuff, some questioned the level of his game, and then his agent said, hey, he's medically cleared to come back to play, and people were like, there's an injury there? So it's all super clear exactly why Cravens left. In the end, probably a mixture of both. But the Redskins might not want him back because he did leave the team. Nicholson, their younger safety from Michigan State, had a pretty good year as well. They could have said, you know what, we're going to move on from Cravens. And at that point, you've got a former second-round pick, still young, and can be the box safety teams like to have.
Yeah, I mean, anytime I hear the things that you just mentioned, like didn't know if he had the motivation, or when you just see a lot of these other red flags, especially off the field for a guy who I think is a pretty talented player, I think this is a time for him to maybe leave the situation that he's in. It's clearly not working. Go to another team, and a team I think will want to get Cravens because, like you said, he is a dynamic player.
All right, so those are 25 players who could be traded this offseason. Let's loop it through for you guys one more time, recap style. Here's the guys we discussed on today's show. Alex Smith, Nick Foles, Eli Manning, Tyrod Taylor, and A.J. McCarron.
A.J. McCarron, why are you on that list?
He might be a restricted free agent or he might be a UFA. We'll find out in February. Then it's Adrian Peterson, Amir Abdullah, Martavis Bryant, Alan Hurns, and Josh Gordon.
I'm off the Amir Abdullah hype train, Tom. It's official.
All right, Jordy Nelson, Michael Crabtree, Dez Bryant, Larry Fitzgerald, and Corty Glenn.
Cordy Glenn, you're on here, and you're an offensive tackle.
All right, some more offensive tackles, and Ereck Flowers and Joe Thomas. Then Tamba Ali, the Saints linebacker, Hau'oli Kikaha, and Richard Sherman.
Joe Thomas, please go to a team other than the Browns. I would love to see that.
And then our last 5 guys, Eli Apple, Dominique Rogers, Aqib Talib, Orlando Scandrick, and Sua Cravens. And yes, folks, we know most of these players will not be traded, but these are guys that could be dealt in the end.